Hi, I'm Barb Mowery. Today I'm going to talk about safe materials handling in the art studio, classroom, and your home. Specifically, I will demonstrate what to do with the rinse water from painting with acrylics. Unfortunately, I see a lot of people online advising me to pour it down the drain. That is not correct. If that's what you've been doing, I'm not here to make you feel guilty or embarrassed about that. When you know better, you do better. Our main concern is about preventing heavy metals from getting into the water system. Public water treatment processes are not good at filtering out cadmium, cobalt, and other hazardous paint ingredients. I will show you two methods for trapping the toxins in solid form for safe disposal. The first option is evaporation. This is a good choice for a home studio when you're only creating a small to moderate amount of rinse water. So when you finish painting, you're going to take your rinse water and pour it into a disposable container that you don't care about, and then just set that aside on a shelf somewhere. The water will evaporate, leaving a solid acrylic film at the bottom. Then you can either save the tub to repeat the process or throw it into the trash. When the paint particles have solidified like this, it is safe to send them to the landfill. The second option is filtration. I got this information from Golden Artist Colors publication called Just Paint, which is an excellent source of evidence-based information about acrylic, watercolor, and oil paints. They do a lot of research, all kinds of other topics that would be interesting to painters, so I can't recommend that enough. Filtration is a good choice if you have a classroom or a busy art studio and you're creating a lot of acrylic rinse water. I usually wait until I have 10 to 20 gallons collected, and then I do the filtration process assembly line style in my garage. Collect your acrylic wastewater in a heavy duty plastic container that has a lid. I like Arizona iced tea bottles and vinegar jugs. Now, a lot of information online was saying if you just set your acrylic paint wastewater in a jug like this, that all the particles would filter to the bottom. And you can see right here, there is particulate matter at the bottom, but this is still quite, blue-green throughout. And so that is not a whole bunch of clean water sitting on top of the sediment. So that will need to be filtered. To set up a filtration rig, you will need to collect the following: a small 1-gallon bucket, a larger 5-gallon bucket with a lid. You are going to cut a Pringle can sized hole in that lid. You need a large plastic automotive funnel, industrial coffee filters, some measuring spoons that are dedicated just to your chemical ingredients, a stirring stick, aluminum sulfite, powdered lime, pH testing strips or paper that you might use for a pool or an aquarium. I found everything from the supply list either at my local hardware store or online. The first step in filtration is to get your smaller 1-gallon bucket ready. You can see mine is marked with wastewater and a skull and crossbones. I'm going to pour a gallon of acrylic rinse water into that bucket. And then to the gallon of acrylic rinse water, and I'm going to measure out the recommended amount of aluminum sulfate and powdered lime. Then I will take my stirring stick and stir this vigorously. It should not actually take long for flocculation to begin. You can see it a little bit in my video, but I'm going to share a picture where you can really see I've let it sit overnight and the acrylic particles have clumped and settled, and there's a good 2 inches of clear water sitting on top. At that point, you are going to take your pH test strips and you want to check the pH of the water. You want it to be somewhere between like 5 and 8. And as you can see, when I tested this, it was really dark blue, which is quite a high pH. So in that case, I need to add some more aluminum sulfate. If your pH was testing extremely low and not in that normal range, then you would add more powdered lime, stir again, retest. When you have a nice green color, that means that I'm in the right zone and I've got the right pH. Once you have your pH balanced, then you are ready to filter. You can take some binder clips or some shop clips, get your industrial coffee filter and put it into the plastic automotive funnel. You can use those clips to hold the edges to the top of the funnel. So you're going to pour the 1 gallon bucket into the coffee filter that is in the automotive funnel that is balanced in a hole in a lid on top of a 5 gallon bucket. And when you pour it in, it's going to sit. You will start to hear it draining into the 5 gallon bucket. And then I advise walking away for a couple hours or overnight. We're going to fast forward to the next morning, and all of the rinse water has now filtered through the coffee filter. And then through the magic of filtration, when I take the lid off the 5 gallon bucket, that water is clear. It is safe now, when you have the clear water in your bucket, to flush it down the toilet or to pour it into your garden. Do not recommend painting with it again, because it could have microbe growth in it if you've been, collecting your rinse water for quite a while. Now you're going to deal with your filter. So it's full of all of this gunk. So I'm going to remove the clips, carefully lift that filter, the coffee filter, out of the funnel, and I'm just going to lay it on the floor. You can lay it on a workbench, someplace you don't really mind some things getting wet, because it is still damp. The acrylic paint particles are not going to soak through necessarily and stain anything on the other side of the filter, but you just need to set it somewhere where it can rest for a few days while those chunks are drying. Once it is fully dry, and depending on your humidity, that might take a couple of days, but once it is fully dry, then it is safe to send it to the landfill. That is the filtration process. If you have any questions, definitely leave me comments or link on over to Golden Artist Colors and leave a question there. For the experts at Golden in their lab, they are always happy to answer questions about this process. Thanks.